He thought walking into the 42nd floor executive suite made him a king. He thought the polished office, the glass doors, and the inherited title CEO meant he was finally the one calling the shots. He thought wrong. Because while 29-year-old Ethan Caldwell Jr. believed he had taken control of Caldwell Freight Systems, he didn't understand the difference between authority and ownership. He didn't understand that power wasn't in the corner office, it was in the contracts buried in the archives. It wasn't in the shiny title his father handed him, it was in the percentage numbers no one paid attention to. And he had no idea that the man he was about to fire was the only person in the building who could legally erase his entire leadership in a single afternoon. His name was Chuck Dalton. 73 years old. Soft-spoken. A founding partner no one talked about anymore. And the quiet holder of 68% of the company's voting shares. He never flaunted it. He never asked for the spotlight. His name wasn't on the leadership page and he didn't show up in interviews. But he was there when the company was nothing but 2 desks in a broken warehouse. He was there when the late founder, Ethan Caldwell Sr., begged him to help stabilize the business after it nearly collapsed during the first recession. Chuck was the reason the company existed. But Ethan Jr.? He didn't know the difference between a bill of lading and an annual audit. And this is the story of how the nepo baby CEO tried to claim the throne and accidentally handed the kingdom to the man he was trying to destroy. That morning began with a meeting request sent at 5:12 a.m. No subject line. No agenda. Just, be in my office at 9. ECJ Chuck arrived at 8:58, precisely 2 minutes early, as he had for 28 years. He walked past employees who greeted him with the same respect they'd shown him since the first fleet trucks rolled out of the warehouse in 1996. But the moment he entered the new CEO's office, something changed. Ethan Caldwell Jr. didn't look up. Didn't shake his hand. Didn't even acknowledge the man who once taught him how to read a balance sheet. He just read from a tablet like he was practicing lines for a school play. We're restructuring. We're moving toward a younger, more agile leadership model. And effective immediately, you're terminated. Just like that. No explanation. No respect. Just scripted arrogance dressed in designer shoes. Chuck simply nodded. He didn't argue. He didn't fight. He didn't even blink. He placed his ID badge on the desk, adjusted his jacket, and said calmly, "If we're doing this, we'll do it properly. Tell your father the board meeting today will be enlightening." Ethan Jr. smirked. Board meeting? Chuck, this is a new era. The board answers to me now. Chuck didn't respond. He didn't need to. Because the CEO in training had just activated something he didn't know existed, Section 14C, Emergency Authority Suspension Protocol. A clause drafted by Chuck himself 12 years earlier. A clause no one remembered. A clause stating, if any founding member or equity partner is terminated without a board vote, all executive authority immediately reverts to the majority shareholder until a full review is completed. And who was the majority shareholder? Not the board. Not the father. Not the newly crowned CEO. It was the man walking quietly out of the building. As Chuck exited the headquarters, escorted politely by a confused security guard, Ethan Jr. leaned back and spun in his father's chair like a child who'd stumbled into a forbidden room. He thought he'd just made his first real leadership decision. He even opened LinkedIn to draft his first post as a visionary CEO. Sometimes tough decisions pave the road to innovation. #leadership #new beginnings. But 3 floors above him, in a legal office he didn't know existed, several attorneys were opening envelopes stamped, confidential, Sec 14C activation time sensitive notarized. They didn't celebrate. They didn't panic. They simply understood something. The boy had triggered a bomb that his father and Chuck built years ago to protect the company from reckless successors. For the first time in 28 years, the emergency protocol was live. While Ethan Jr. polished his new nameplate, the board of directors began clearing their schedules. Not because they wanted to, but because the law and the original corporate bylaws required an emergency session within 4 hours. In New York, a board member cancelled a live interview. In Austin, another abandoned a tech conference. In Chicago, 2 investors left a lunch meeting mid-meal. No one was angry. Not yet. They were worried. Because Section 14C wasn't written for accidents. It was written for incompetence. And incompetence had finally arrived. Meanwhile, Chuck wasn't heading home. He wasn't packing boxes. He wasn't quietly retiring. He was walking across the street to the law firm that had handled the company's filings for 3 decades. A place where the receptionist greeted him with, "Mr. Dalton, everything is prepared." Inside a conference room, a stack of documents waited, certified, time-stamped, notarized. The trigger letter. The shareholder ledger. The original bylaw signed by Ethan Sr. before his passing. The succession protocol. The equity certificates no one had reviewed in years. All of it airtight. All of it legal. All of it final. Chuck signed 1 page. Just 1. Activation confirmed. The lawyers handed him a slim case. "Your authority is reinstated pending the board vote," one said softly. Chuck nodded. "Let's finish this." Back at headquarters, the clock was moving faster than Ethan Jr. realized. 11:14 a.m., board group chat lit up. 11:27 a.m., senior counsel arrived with a briefcase no one wanted to see. 11:42 a.m., investors gathered in a private conference room. 12:03 p.m., HR was told to prepare sensitive documentation. 12:19 p.m., rumors spread through the building like wildfire. By 1 p.m., everyone knew something: the CEO's son had screwed up. But he still didn't know. He was too busy setting up his new office, rearranging the furniture, rehearsing his speech for the company-wide meeting he scheduled for 4 p.m. He even practiced smiling in the window's reflection. He didn't see the storm behind him. He didn't hear the whispers. He didn't read the emails. He didn't check the board's encrypted communication channel. He was still living in the fantasy his father built around him, a world where he was always right, always special, always destined to lead. Reality was already inside the building. At 2:59 p.m., the elevator doors opened on the 39th floor. Chuck walked out. His steps were steady. His expression calm. His briefcase, the same one he'd carried for 2 decades, clicked softly as he walked down the glass hallway toward the executive conference room. Employees who had watched him leave that morning now watched him return with something different: authority. Real authority. The kind that didn't come from chairs or titles, but from signatures, ownership, and the lines of legal documents everyone else had forgotten. The receptionist stood. "They're waiting for you, Mr. Dalton." He nodded once and pushed open the doors. Inside the room, 8 board members, 2 attorneys, the CFO, and at the far end, wearing a golf shirt and panic on his face. Ethan Caldwell Sr. He wasn't angry. He wasn't confused. He was terrified. He knew exactly what Section 14C meant. He had helped write it. The moment Chuck entered, the founder stood. "Chuck." But Chuck raised a hand gently. "This is business, Ethan. Nothing personal." He placed a single document on the table. "As majority shareholder, I am calling for an immediate vote to rescind all executive appointments made in the last 48 hours. No one spoke. No one had to. The chair of the board adjusted his glasses. Motion acknowledged. The emergency session begins. 5 minutes later, the door burst open. Ethan Jr. stumbled in, face flushed, voice shaky. "What is this? Why wasn't I informed? I'm the CEO." He looked to his father. To the board. To anyone who might rescue him. But the only person who spoke was Chuck. "You hold a title, Ethan. But titles are not power." He slid the bylaws across the table toward him. "Power is ownership. Authority is contractual. And you terminated an equity partner without a vote. The boy's lips trembled. You can't fire me. Chuck leaned back. I'm not firing you. The board is. The chair asked for the vote. Hands went up one by one. Even the founder, after a long, painful pause, raised his. 8-0. Unanimous. Reversal complete. Authority restored. The nepo CEO stood frozen, humiliated, powerless. Then Chuck stood and delivered the line that would echo through the company for years: leadership doesn't come from a doorplate or a bloodline. It comes from the contracts you sign and the promises you keep. Ethan Jr. was escorted out minutes later. Not by security, but by the weight of reality he had never learned to carry. By evening, Chuck was back in his old office, the one he never should have been removed from in the first place. The nameplate was already restored. Charles Dalton, chairman and CEO. He didn't celebrate. He didn't brag. He simply sat down, opened a folder, and went back to work. Just like he had for almost 30 years. Across the building, employees whispered, "He's back. Thank God. Now the company is safe." The next morning, trucks rolled out on time. Warehouses operated smoothly. Clients received their shipments. The business ran exactly the way it always had under Chuck's quiet leadership. The only difference? Now everyone finally understood the truth: in business, titles come and go. But ownership, real power, never leaves. And the boy who tried to take the kingdom learned the oldest lesson in corporate history: titles don't give power. Contracts do.